Is everyone back from the China?
Hey, hello everyone.
Hey, it's Ralph here from Generous.
Hey there.
How's everyone?
Pretty good.
Hey Dennis, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
It's good.
Lots of work has been happening with you guys. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for your contributions as well.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Everyone's just hacking away. I think right post Shanghai conference, everyone's hacking away and building some amazing tools.
There guys. Yeah, it is.
Tools and more RAM.
And more RAM now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A little gift for today, you know. I think hopefully we can have EOS Argentina. They give a really good breakdown of the last deployment of the, and it actually highlights the difference between the RAM. You know, that slight increase of today. The oops increase.
Oh, you mean 65.5?
Yeah, I was like, wait, how do we get to 64 like in so fast, or 65 so fast? But
Oops.
yeah, but I think it's.
So I have to say, you know, I'm just watching, you know, so many faces here that I met in Seoul. So it's awesome to actually see those faces and recognize people in person. So I'm actually looking forward to how this call goes today. It'll hopefully be so much more, you know, I don't know, easy, I would say. Easy is what I'm looking for. So we'll see how it goes.
For sure.
Hey.
So who's our host today? You know,
I think me, along with, let me see what's the second.
Please tell myself.
Okay, great.
And we did have an agenda the last time I saw, although it may be a bit changed. Was RAM on that agenda?
It was not proposed, but I think spending it's more of an ad hoc agenda, it seems, today.
Yeah.
Minutes for RAM, and then I know that there's a referendum contract update that will be the focus.
Sounds good. That's what I saw as well. So whoever's the host, it's 6:03. It's ever so late.
I think that, and sorry, Daniel, if you were on, sorry if I don't see you, but I think Daniel was going to be a few minutes late, and he would be talking about the contract upgrade. So we can wait for him, and we can potentially discuss RAM briefly or get started. I don't know, Denny or someone from EOS Nation, do you know if Daniel will be on shortly?
Yeah, so I sent him the link. He's kind of driving to the office right now, so he's gonna join us as soon as he gets there. But I'm noticing that there's still a lot of people trying to join. So I know that we had issues with the link. So just in the last 30 seconds, we've had about 8 people join. So maybe we can give a few more minutes for the people to join before we do the group discussion. And we could have the first topic about the RAM at first, and then we could talk about the referendum update once Daniel joins the call.
Sure.
Did someone share the link with Daniel?
Are we doing the attendance?
I did share it with them.
Oh, Daniel from EOS Nation. I thought Dan. Okay.
Well, we can share it with Dan as well. So.
Are we doing the attendance on chain or is it on Zoom?
Yeah, we can do it on chain, and we can also do it in the Zoom chat.
Shall I start to record, or are we waiting?
Yeah, let's start recording. I think it might also be live streamed already, so but yeah, let's record.
Is everybody recovered from jet lag that was traveling?
because no one slept since then.
Yeah. I was told like an amazing trick. Just skip sleeping for a long time, and then yeah, that really works.
Is that how to be a block producer, or how to get over that?
Good. That was great. That was great. I think that's a requirement of being a block producer. Actually. Let's extrapolate that to EOS in general. Is that sleep is optional.
Optional. Discouraged. Okay, we'll just give it another minute, and then we'll get started on RAM.
If everyone could please mute when they're not speaking, that would be helpful.
Paolo, you have access to the participant list, and you can always mute people. So if you see that their screen is I know Mark was doing that all the time, just muting.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we got a lot of people here. Maybe we want to get started. Did I hear from Dennis that was RAM discussion first, just to cover off on what just happened, and then go over the referendum contract when Daniel joins. Has Daniel joined? Just wondering.
Daniel has not joined, but he says he's going to be there in the next 5 minutes. So
sure,
we can talk before.
Well, Dennis, do you want to start? I can give a little update on where we're at.
Well, if we can touch up maybe the RAM discussion, and that can kind of eat up some time.
Yeah. So
U.S. Argentina, or
yeah, is Argentina on, since you were the first to publish the explanation? Chitty here, anybody? Okay. Would anyone else that was close to publishing the explanation like to go over that for the group? Any volunteers? Okay, no. I guess if anyone would like to know why the increase in RAM occurred, you can go find EOS Argentina's Steam post and read that.
Well, quickly, the initialization of the contract was not undefined, but unexpected, and it referred to a value of 0, and then it added more initial RAM than we thought it would, and so it's just an initialization. I think that made it add 1.5 gig from the get-go. Is that what happened? And then the rest is continuing at the right pace, like 1 kilobyte per block. That's what happened. Are there any questions?
No, that's a great. That sums it up.
So I actually have a question that's more operational in nature. What is the value that we're setting for the DB size in the config.ini? Has everybody agreed on what value to set, and go from there, so that we don't have to set it every week or every day?
That's local to your operations, right? It doesn't impact the chain itself, but it's your limit.
Okay.
Presumably, you have to set it high enough to be able to at least encompass what the network is expecting as far as RAM goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we have chosen to do. We have set it out to double the 64 gig setting. Just curious if there was any consequence to that, or any other issues that
it's the max capacity inside the chain size DB thing. MB is the max capacity you'll be able to allocate internally. If you try to allocate more than that, poof, you'll have a bad allocation and your system will crash. And there's a new guard option that will tear down your system just before hitting that limit. So it'll do a clean shutdown, so you won't get a dirty state after it. So the guard is useful there. But then again, it's just a max.
Presumably, you have to leave some space. I mean, if you've got like a 128 gig system, you'll need to leave, I don't know what the rules are, like 20%, 15%, whatever it is, for the rest of your system processes.
Right, yeah. I mean,
the chain DB size is solely for the database size of contracts and state. It's not related to your, but you obviously need to have some more space, but these two settings are not related to the rest of the processes, of course.
Yeah, the total RAM purchase till date is 49.71 GB. So even that's not being used either, but that's what's purchased so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just if anybody's curious, if you just do a NCDU of the state, the shared memory file, you can actually tell what the used RAM is on chain versus what the actual total RAM allocatable is. What's the purchase size. So it actually gives you both values right there. You don't have to go check on chain to get that value. It just turned out to be an
Guys, Eugene here. So some of my team members reported 60 gigabyte plus RAM usage for filter on latest version 1.1.1. So just something to keep in mind, that you need at least 64 gigabit RAM.
Don't use filter on in production, and if you do, I have a pull request to the main repo for filter out. Use that instead.
Okay.
This doesn't scale anyway. You can't use filter on for everything unless. So you made it a black list instead of a white list?
I agree. I mean, I don't use it, but some, I know that some VPs do, and it's just a warning, basically, something to keep in mind.
And I think having a filter out would be more ideal. I think there's
already a pull request. I made it.
I'm great. I'm grateful for that pull request. I think that would be very useful because right now a lot of smart contracts are gobbling up a big majority of the network. So you want to allow a lot of them, but then not a few of those big major contracts. That might be, just more spam than anything else.
So maybe it will be good to reiterate, maybe do a post or a general statement, whoever wants to do it. What is the recommended setting for BP operation for config file?
I can link you a post that we did like almost a month ago on what a full node should be and standards in that regard.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. It will be good to refresh everyone's.
Just some food for thought for the group. I know that over the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of agenda items that have been missed, not seconded, or inadvertently pushed because Dan shows up. I think that this is a great call to discuss things like what just happened with the RAM, with system changes. But when it comes to specific proposals, like, for example, Scott with JSON on chain, which is certainly valuable and worth listening to, it may be worth thinking about for those groups that are working on those proposals to propose a time that anyone who would like to hear more about it can simply join. And then we start to keep these calls focused on just the things that relate to the chain directly. So just some food for thought for everybody. So moving the meeting forward. So I know that I saw.
Sorry, Kevin. Just before we move forward, we all kind of know what happened with RAM. Are we going to do anything about it? Should we do anything about it? Are we going to do anything about it?
Well, certainly it's up to each block producer to independently verify any update that is pushed out or proposed. So in this case, it seems that while everybody likely was trying to independently verify it, nobody caught this. So I think that first and foremost, it involves evaluating our own individual standard operating procedures for testing and making sure that our internal teams are as robust as possible in that regard.
Yeah, and what about RAM? Like, on the Argentina post, they suggested we could actually set RAM rate to actually 0 and then cover up and make up for the additional RAM that was just created. and then we can set it back to normal later. Should we bother doing that, or?
Well, following the same method in which we implemented the RAM increase in the first place, that can be proposed on chain, and for those that support it can vote on it, and discussion follows.
Agreed.
Okay, so I noticed that Daniel from EOS Nation is on, right?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
How you guys doing?
So referendum contract, important topic. Take it away.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Glad to be giving you guys all an update on the progress we've been making on the referendum contract. Daniel from EOS Nation. I've been working with a number of individuals from various VPs for the last number of weeks, and we're making some good progress. I'm going to share you guys in the chat here if you want to follow along. I've posted a roadmap yesterday. So I'm just going to give you guys a high-level overview of our roadmap, where we're at, and then I'll hand it over to Denny to give a quick demo of the tally tool. So the referendum system that we've come up with is comprised of a few elements. There's a proposal submission. There's the ability to vote. There's a vote tally, a vote snapshot, ratification, and decentralized user interfaces. So the way that the proposal submission works is it's a modification of the eosio.forum that Alexandre from EOS Canada has been working on, where anybody can submit a proposal on chain to be voted on by the community. Nobody needs any permission to put forward a proposal as long as they can cover the cost of the RAM. Any UI can display any proposal that the developer of that UI chooses to display. It's going to be up to the proposer to convince a UI developer to display their proposal for voting. And each proposal has a unique hash that can be verified prior to voting. To try to kind of control some of the chaos with, anybody can post and trying to, and at the same time kind of limiting the effort for our UI developers. An additional thing we're doing is suggesting that we have a designated account for BP proposal submissions. That would be a default, that any UI that's referencing these referendums could basically always reference this BP account. It's a trusted account that's controlled by a vote of 15 out of 21 elected block producers, so that block producers could actually put forward proposals that are basically always available to see in any UI that's supporting the referendum. Any questions on the proposal part before I move on to voting? Beauty. So voting is also done through the EOS Forum DApp, which is again a modification of EOS.io Forum that Alexandre has worked on. Any EOS account can cast a vote, and again, this is something that can be accessed from any UI. The voter's EOS account name and vote selection are recorded on chain, and results can be tallied and displayed in any UI that supports it. The vote tally is going to be off-chain for our initial iteration. So this is something that Denny from EOS Nation has been working on. It's a MongoDB tally application that basically just tallies the number of tokens that are staked towards each proposal and at a given time. And since the tally is off-chain, you can't just query the chain for the results. The UIs will need to feed from custom-built tally result endpoints. We'll also have a vote snapshot. So this is meant to help us basically audit and confirm the authenticity of a result of a referendum. It'll be taking a snapshot every 7,200 blocks, so every hour. And it allows anybody to look back and see how many votes were cast for a given proposal option during each hour throughout that duration of the referendum. And then ratification is really up to the elected BPs. So it's going to be really basically up to the, a vote of 15 out of 21 block producers to recognize that, okay, a referendum has passed. We've met the threshold of the Constitution of the 30 consecutive days. 15% have voted, 10% more yeses than nos. That's something that can be monitored by the BPs, and when that threshold has been met, it's going to be up to a vote of 15 of 21 VPs to put forward the changes on the blockchain. And as I've kind of referred to throughout, the user interfaces are decentralized. So there's not a one portal that you have to go to. We want to make sure that EOS token holders can service themselves in the platform that they're comfortable in, and we don't want to have them exposing their private keys and to new risks to a new platform if they're already, for example, comfortable using Greymass. So I'm happy to say that Team Greymass has already committed to supporting this referendum in their wallet on day one, as well as EOS Toolkit, EOS Authority, My EOS Kit, and we're creating a new referendum-specific portal. This is something that Steve from EOS Tribe has been working on. It's going to be a dedicated, both referendum / kind of educational hub for voting on EOS referendums. Eventually, we're gonna once this is launched, want to keep iterating on it. We would like the tally to eventually be on chain. Greymass has put forward a great proposal using Node.EOS plugins that will enable us to do all the tallying on chain rather than an off chain MongoDB. Another thing we'd like to improve in the future is a more automated way to manage the proposals. So I mentioned at the beginning that right now, anybody can submit a proposal, but it's up to the UI to kind of manually manage which proposals we're displaying. In the future, it'd be great if there was some way that, for example, token holders could vote on which proposals they want to see put forward for elections, and it could be automatically displayed in UIs. But one thing I foresee probably happening is, given the fact that anybody can be a proposer, we'll likely see groups form that kind of build reputation over time and probably become a default account as well. So the BP owned account will likely sooner rather than later not be the only default. We'll maybe have another group form that becomes, proficient in putting forward referendum proposals, and they could become a default and kind of like an independent body that's helping to put forward proposals for the community.
Can I jump in just a second, Daniel, about that? So
sure.
We can imagine a default or an account, let's say the EOS.io account that is managed by BPs, and the UIs can still be generic because they're going to pull from a table, from a scoped table. And the scope is the account of the proposer. So if we have 70 proposition under the EOS.io account, and the default wallets display those propositions, by default, someone can always go and change the account name to, I don't know, Everypedia, and then they can see the proposition for Everypedia, but it's their own realm, right? They're not going to propose things for referendum for a global community, but for their own, scoped community. So anyone can do that, and they can tell their folks, like, go and vote in that account, the Everypedia account or the Big DApp account, and then they can have their sub-community, but it's still using the same protocol. So UIs can still be generic. And so if you look at the repository there, we've designed like 3 basic types of object for proposals, and they're all always typed with a type. So you can say, let's say the BP's proposal V1 only has a content element. So it's just going to be text. But some other people could create their own type of proposal, and then the UIs could adapt to the different types to plug in the right widgets and all of that. So I think it still can be generic. That's what I want to say.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. The only other thing I've basically covered our vision. I can give you a status update on kind of our progress. A lot of this stuff is already complete, ready for testing. So all of the submitting a proposal and voting on chain is ready to start testing. The tally tool is in progress. From what I understand, we're probably just a matter of days away before that's ready. And then once that's done, we can already start testing. And I already noticed that some of the user interfaces have already integrated with the features. Like I saw Greymass posted a screenshot in in our Telegram group, they already have an interface for submitting proposals that's ready for us to start testing. So yeah, does anybody? I know we've got a few other folks from the referendum group on the call. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything before I hand it over to Denny to talk a little bit more about the tally tool he's working on. Great. So I guess take it away, Denny.
Sure. Thank you, Daniel, for the great introduction and the update for the referendum contract. I've shared the links in the Zoom chat. Maybe I can share the. So right now we've had an update for the referendum contract, EOS Forum DAP. I think Alex posted that yesterday. So I've done the update on the code. The examples are not shown there yet, but I'll do the updates. Actually, the big issue right now that's for anyone who's syncing with MongoDB is that it takes a long time to sync your node to Mongo. So if anyone wants to test this locally, they'll need to start syncing your nodes right away and enable MongoDB. So I would just reference the GitHub repo. It's under EOS BP developers. I'll repost it in the link just so it's on the latest page. There's a few examples for anyone who has not heard of GraphQL. It's kind of an explored API where you can dive into the schema and actually kind of discover the data set. So you can learn from the schema itself by posting your query. And if you're putting the wrong fields, it will tell you you're putting the wrong fields. Maybe you should use this. So maybe I can just show as a.
Yeah, Dennis, one question. So
yep.
We're interested in integrating as part of my EOS kit. Can we use the MongoDB that you synced up? Can you have like open the API so we can just pull the data from there?
Yeah, we're currently right now syncing one of our nodes on our server. Right now I have it on my local environment, on my actual local physical laptop. But once our node is fully synced up, we're going to open up our GraphQL endpoint for everyone to use. So all we have to do is once we have a node fully synced up, all we have to do is add more sort of graph types or more schemas to that endpoint, and then we can update it. It makes it a lot easier to query very advanced things. Like one of the examples that we have is being able to query an account and figure out the staking weight per a specific block. So let's say you want your referendum or your worker proposal stopped at block 6 million or 7 million. You can actually query an account and figure out how much staking power they had at that particular block number. So you can almost do, you say, okay, well, I have 1,000 voters or 10,000 voters. You can query all of those voters and figure out how much weight they had at that particular block number. It makes it very powerful to query essentially anything on any moment given in time. One of the things with the MongoDB instance is that you have to build a few indexes. So out of the box, the MongoDB plugin will enable, transaction number, block number, a few of the core indexes that block one initializes. For this, I've had to enable a few more indexes just so that we can run the queries a little bit faster on specific contracts. So if the BPs are hosting this MongoDB GraphQL endpoint, they just have to enable a few special indexes just so that the queries happen a lot faster. But overall, it's been really good. There's two main things I'm using in the backend is the aggregate function and the graph lookup. So you can do graph lookups and you could, find a transaction and find where the block and then find all the accounts that are related to X thing. So you can do some really cool things with using a MongoDB. And I was very, very impressed with the speeds and the quality of the queries that you can build. So the links that I've shared can either be used for BPs to host it by themselves, or you can use them as a learning tool. You could just look at how the code is written and then do your own thing, build your own APIs. But I think we can do some really crazy stuff with Mongo plus GraphQL. So I'm looking forward to develop those tools. And the examples I posted is to have enough queries to build the tallying tools. Because there's some pretty complex queries, like figuring out how much weight an account has per block number. That was my main thing, is figuring out how much does all the voters have per this particular block. So that's built in already. And yeah, looking forward to build some more MongoDB queries. Did you have any other questions about the tallying or MongoDB or GraphQL?
Not from my side. I'll go check it out.
Yeah, it's open source. It's on MIT license. You can copy it, fork it, use it, contribute, whatever you want. It's up to the community. It's given to the world. So
I think it'll be important to have perhaps one other implementation of the tally algorithm. Maybe the data source or the query engine is one thing, but then there's how do you compute that, and how do we arrive to a sort of distributed consensus about who won or what won? So.
Oh, for sure. We should definitely have multiple tallying tools. Same thing like when we did the snapshot, right? We had multiple different implementations of building the snapshot. We should still have the same thing for the vote tallying as well. So this is just, I'm just leveraging MongoDB and using a few examples to show how to do queries with Mongo, but everyone can build their own interpretations of this. And it should be very enforced that we should have multiple vote tallying, especially for large referendum contracts.
So it's been...
I have a quick question. First of all, great work. It seems like an extremely impressive project. Question from a usability point of view, will we or do we want to allow an abstain vote so that somebody can contribute to the quorum without necessarily taking a position on a given issue?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. Look, I think...
Is that abstain from a token holder or from a block producer?
I think on a
token holder. Like I don't want to take a position on this issue, but I want to be part of the mass that raises it to 15% so that we do get some resolution.
Right. So the two parameters that are sent with a vote is the vote itself, which is a Boolean, and then there's a vote JSON, which can be freeform, and then the proposition could specify what you want to see in the vote JSON for it to be valid, and also a different option. So you could say vote true with the value of the vote. Let's say we're voting for a person. Then the JSON could say person equals hello, or that guy, or Bob, or Alice. And then a false vote would mean I abstain from that vote. So we can since off-chain tallies, we can decide on that at the time of referendum, and we can implement what we want, and then probably we want the UIs to respect the proposition, right? That we have a pattern defined in the proposition, say it's a multi-option vote, and then multi-option is always reflected this way in a vote. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. It'll just be a challenge to get everyone speaking the same language. I think we can do it.
Right. So I think we should start simple, probably with a yes or no, and then we could add a different sort of referendum with questions. But I think maybe the important bit is to be able to gather some feedback. So I think your proposition might be very important at start. So when people, they feel the question is not comfortable with them, or they would like to see just that little thing change in the proposition, they could abstain and say so in their vote, right? It might be useful.
Yeah, we had talked about including the option for an abstain, like a third rather than a Boolean yes, no, true, false, having a third abstain option. And we, for the purpose of an MVP, trying to get something out as quick as possible, we decided that it would be simpler to have just a yes or no option, but in the future, it could be something we could consider in a future iteration, I think.
I had a quick question about the proposal JSON. I still see 3 different proposals on the README for the GitHub. ticket, and I was wondering, has that been finalized yet, the actual structure for the proposal JSON, or is it still up for debate? We're going to pick from those three or some other options?
Well, so right now, if you see, I sent a sample proposal. It's on a screenshot from Team Greymass on the mainnet BP channel. So I put a proposal on chain, which is using the type BP proposal V1. So in a sense, that's sort of defined. This is the simplest. The V1 has only content, and its vote will be just a true false. So that's set, right? And also, I think the propositions that are going to come up are going to decide what we do. If you want to create a new type there, maybe we'll have a wiki somewhere where we define the JSON schema of these types. Right now, I think there's only the first one that we would want to use right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful, because I think there's been some discussion about the process we go through for defining specifications. You know, there's a traditional process of RFCs and requests for quotes in building internet standards. And I think that if we're talking about building kind of the new internet under EOS, I think it would be very helpful to have some ideas of how we build these standards. I also agree with serendipitous, you know, just have stuff evolve, emergent properties, you know, that's a cool process as well. But I feel there are two different philosophies of development, and I've seen some conflict even within the EOS DAC team about, you know, how we go about developing these standards. And I think that the block producers can provide a lot of direction in this, because we're actually the ones working on a lot of this. So I would appreciate if we could, you know, like you just said, you clarified something important, saying we see 3 standards on the GitHub, but we're actually leaning towards MVP of using standard 1. And there's giving a little bit of direction and then seeing if there's any pushback from the community or not. I'm also a little bit uncomfortable of just kind of everything being whatever it wants to be, because then the people actually building the tools might think that this is a standard without a strong RFC process, that their tool is going to break if we change it.
Just to be clear, that little example, it was like 10 at night. It was just me, and I said, propose structures, just throw out ideas. This is by no means a standard, and I agree that we should have something a little bit better, maybe just another document with or a JSON schema. Like, I invite some people also, or you, to craft a little frame. And also, I think we're going to discover as needs come, right, what we really need, because we don't really know what we need. My fear is that, okay, we do a true-false vote, and then we figure out at that point, when millions of users have started voting, well, you know, it would have been really cool to be able to gather feedback from those no votes, to know why. Because it just happens that the proposition is so big, maybe they object to just one thing. So we're going to learn through that, and then we can have an RFC to do something a little bit better.
Good point, Alex. I just had a quick question, or maybe it's not so quick, but I just wanted to understand from the team, the referendum contract team, what the initial thoughts were around abstention. Because if I'm thinking from a binary perspective, it's really only yes or no. And so if you abstain, you're effectively a no.
No. So what we do is define the vote value as being something else. So yes would be I do vote, and then the vote value would be inside the JSON, whereas vote equals false would mean abstain, right? The meaning of the vote is going to be defined in the proposition. If you take a look at the current sample proposition on chain, maybe I could give it a little bit of an idea. Let me see if I could share my screen here, or do I have that?
So you're saying the outcome of an abstention is not the same as a no? But wouldn't it effectively be?
Depends on the tally, right? Depends on the people reading the chain and interpreting the vote values.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you.
So he's talking about how if there's a ton of no's and the ratio of no's to yeses is pretty much similar, then it wouldn't pass. As to if you had like 50% yes and then everybody votes abstain instead of no, then that's more of an overwhelming yes. So it depends on how the
But the tally would not check yes versus no's. It would check only the yeses, or the tally algorithm would decide on that. Maybe there's 3 buckets. Yeah. There's yes option 1, yes option 2, and no, or an abstain, and then we create the buckets. I don't know how we do the graphs, but But let me show you the sample Do you see that? I'm sharing my screen here. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is the proposition I put yesterday on the chain, like the title, the fund dilemma, and then you have the proposal JSON, which has a type of BP's proposal v1, right? And it only has a content, and the content is here. So everything is defined in content. Like the meaning of the vote, true answering false means that. For your vote to be counted, make sure you include a hash. And the tally would be like according to whatever. And the timing is there, right? And the question is up here. So that's the simplistic, the simplest way where we put the information as text. That's a convention. Tallies will implement that. Does that make sense?
If I'm understanding you, you're proposing that the freeform text should define the schema per vote, essentially?
So it could be this way, yes. But eventually, it'd be better if the type of the proposal determined the format of the vote, right? So it's all mechanic, it's all programmable.
I would absolutely agree to that. I think if we're asking people to build tools for this, then it's on us to do the hard work of defining a schema that they can program against.
Yeah, so I think the people building the tools, we can sit down together and find out, okay, but I'm having a problem with the UI with this, let's add that, da-da-da, as the need arise. I understand, Luke.
It's just hard, you know. Like these schemas, defining schemas are the hard part. They're like building the tools is the easy part. The actual hard part is consensus on schema. That's why an RFC process, you know, often takes weeks and months and sometimes years. This is very, very difficult stuff to do. And I hope that we as a community can represent ourselves very well to say we're willing to do the hard work and come together. And you know, like it's very difficult to get engagement and involvement, like I'm sure you've seen, Alex, where you've kind of just proposed something at 10 o'clock at night because you're the only one proposing anything, you know. So we should probably, you know, get a group of people that are serious about this process, because this is going to be the future. As we do new and interesting things on EOS, we're going to need a process for consensus on the actual protocols. That's what's really important and very, very difficult. So yeah, I have not done RFCs myself professionally. I know very few people have. I know some people who have, but it's a very difficult process. But that's kind of for a reason, because now you could build securely to these tools, you know, HTTP spec, our web linking spec. These are very powerful tools that we can all build against. So I'm hoping we'll get something like that for EOS.
I'm thinking of like the Swagger API. It didn't come from an RFC. People built it, like crafted it. It's a big spec. My goal is to have a very small spec, the simplest spec, so we keep it simple and we can actually ship it. Because otherwise, building a like complex spec are going to be very powerful, but also take a lot of time. And that's the compromise I think I'm trying to do here, right? And we'll look back in 6 months at this little BP proposal v1 and we're going to laugh, right? Because it's obviously not going to be able to sustain. But if it covers 80% of the cases, because, you know, most of the time on these chat, we can vote through it and people, Everpedia can just get a community sentiment with yes, no, and we've covered 80%, it's already good, right? It's more than nothing. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Our goal with this initial iteration is not to be perfect. We know that it's far from perfect. Our goal is to get something into market that's better than what we have today. You know, right now there's a lot of issues that, you know, we've got a worker proposal fund with $1 million a day going into it, no way of accessing those funds. We've got you know, an interim constitution that needs to be amended and ratified. There's all this stuff that needs to be done sooner rather than later, and we want to get something to market as soon as possible so that we can start learning from it and iterating from there. And totally agree that what we're proposing here is far from the ideal, but it's you know, it's a step forward.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for working on it and getting it in there. It's going to be, everything here needs to be iterative, and the best thing that can happen is for people to bring forward these kinds of things so that we can at least get out there, get voting, get referenda actually really going, and then people will come up with better versions. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
another thing that we can improve on next time is take a moment to translate, as too much has passed to translate effectively, I imagine, at this point.
We could just translate right now saying that there is a proposed new method for voting, and just describe it briefly if somebody wishes to do that. Probably wouldn't hurt, because that's the summary, right? It's a proposed new voting method that's an iterative voting method that will help us, be able to at least do some things on the chain, but it's a bit technical right now, but it will get better.
Is Tafang on the call still? Or Sheldon, if you would like to take a stab at just translating top line of what's been discussed, and also that moving forward we will do a better job to make pauses.
OK， 我们刚才讨论的就是关于全民公投的一个工具，这个是来自几个 BP 组成的一个全民公投小组做出来的第一个方案。那这个第一个方案呢？他们采取的这个态度呢，是以一个小步快跑的形式，从智能合约方面呢，已经实现的差不多，但是从 schema 设计，就是这个问题应该怎么设计，这是不是这个问题的种类会有一些类型的限制，然后用智能合约的方式去限制呢？现在在这个版本里面是没有的，这个版本里面呢是比较自由形式的，它把很多空间呢留给了这个propose 里面的那个 JSON， 比较自由形式 free form 的方式，你可以去形容。那作为第一个版本，因为我们不是很确定，就是说市场的反应是怎么样，还有具体的需求是什么。这个是这个 referendum 小组提出来的方案。那下一步呢，就是让各种前端工具可以接入，根据它已经有这个自由的形式去 parse 出不同的前端出来。那我们也知道，就是比如 Grey Math 还有我们自己的 MyEOS Kit 也会去集成。所以如果你有任何面向终端用户的前端工具，想要集成这个的话，可以一会儿再加入到这个 referendum 的小组里面，一起去碰个面。That's it.
Were there any questions?
Yes, I have one quick question about the vote tallying. Since it is happening off-chain with MongoDB, do we have to know any other attack vectors related to it?
Well, right now it's using like the EOS IO MongoDB. So essentially this would just be the implementation of doing the query. So essentially anyone with a full node that has MongoDB sync should all be receiving the same numbers. And if they're not receiving the same numbers, then it means that they didn't sync it properly. So ideally, if we do an official vote tally with this implementation or this query, we should have 3 or 4, multiple BPs all completely synced, and then all we do is run the query, and then we should all have the same answer. Same thing with the snapshot. So that's kind of yeah. There's definitely some attack vectors if you manipulate or you delete data in your own database, but essentially this is just a query, and as long as you don't touch too much your MongoDB database, we should all have the same numbers.
Right, so it's not an attack if you tweak your local data, right? It's you're trying to give false information. But in the end, if everyone implements the same tally algorithm, since the data is immutable, it's on chain, we should arrive to a consensus. But I want to say one thing. It does not necessarily depend on...
I think this is also where different front-end tools, we have diversity in the front-end tools. So if you see that data are inconsistent across different tools, then we know that something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, we've been working on a MySQL database implementation, so we're happy to validate with Dennis.
Exactly.
And
so
provide some value.
It does not rely on solely MongoDB here. And so with the discussion about the snapshot was that we could take a snapshot, like have the blocks advance and stop the chain each 7,200 blocks, and then query the blockchain for all the accounts, query the blockchain for all of its content, flush that on disk. And this gives us a snapshot to take it as a new tally tool, right? And then we can grab the votes that are coming through those blocks and do that. It could be done in Python, right? Separate from any database implementation if you do a full resync. So there's many ways to go about that. The MongoDB is one. It'll be easily available if people don't want to craft anything else, but it's not limited to that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the progress for the plugin that Greymass is working on. Have you guys started on it yet? Because it'd be great to eventually move all of the voting on chain, so we don't have to deal with those problems.
Do we have anyone from Greymass on the line?
Yeah, I personally haven't started working on that yet. I need to look more into how the plugins are formed before I can actually create that myself. It would be nice to see more help on that. Block 1 right now is basically the only one who can create Node.EOS plugins. So I'd like that to change, and if anyone else has worked on a plugin, I've dipped my toes in it with a pull request in a different plugin. So it'll take some time to go down that route.
Yes,
There's a few
so
block producers that can help.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alex and I were
yeah.
actually talking about this earlier, and we were also wondering, like maybe one solution could be to add some sort of hooks into the system itself, so that it's possible to know from another contract when someone stakes and undelegates bandwidth. So maybe that's also a possibility to add those into the system contract. Alex, did you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, all these things are possibilities. I think the Greymass was to have that sort of off chain and not add strain to the chain and the normal operations, which makes sense. But at the same time, there's no consensus. It's just an easy way to deploy the code because it comes with Node.EOS, which you're running already, right? Different options.
Yeah, I think we should talk about this on the Telegram more.
Scott, I'm happy to talk to you about the plugin. We have a plugin which might help. But yeah.
Great. Just send me a Telegram message offline if you like.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? All right. Then thank you very much to EOS Nation, EOS Canada for presenting, Dafang for doing the, oh yeah, Rohan?
Sorry guys, I have one final question. This was from EOS Argentina. Does anyone know what was used to bootstrap our network? So when we initially created the EOS IO accounts, EOS IO created the accounts, we had liquid balance and stake balance. Does anyone know exactly what contract was used?
Is the ABP on?
Yeah,
He's looking
that's
for
a
the
short quick answer.
Trip him up.
This was important for the unregistered thing, and EOS Argentina tried to find the answer on Telegram, but they couldn't. So I was asking on their behalf. If anyone knows anything, just please let us know. Thank you.
Okay, just what I said at the beginning of the meeting, I hope everyone is encouraged to take anything that is fallen off the wayside of the agenda and post a Zoom link and say, hey, I'm going to be here presenting this at this time. If you want to come listen, please listen. I think that will get a lot more done more quickly in a decentralized manner. It's just my opinion, so you can take it or leave it. But thank you very much, everybody, for presenting and the good questions. And if that's all, we can adjourn. And for next week, or for the next meeting, we have Rick. You sent it to me, but who will be leading the call?
Yeah, it's next in Canada.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Good day, guys.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Thanks.